Hello and welcome to another awesome coding video. Today we're going to make a CRUD app using Postgres on Vercel. If you didn't know, Vercel now offers database solutions right in the same platform as their deployment solutions. Something that I feel has been missing for a long time is the ability to administer your databases from the same platform that you're launching your applications. Well, don't worry, that is no longer the case. Vercel now offers 4 different types of databases. With their deployments, you can do an edge config. They have Redis, Postgres, and blob storage. And then I've noticed that they also have a new integrations section. We'll get into that in another video, but I will link to that in the description of this. So we're going to get right to our application. We're going to be making this app. We have a create route, a read route, an update route, and a delete route, and all of them correspond to the data operations that we're going to be performing. So in our create route, we can create a new user. Once we've created a user, we can go to the read route and it will read and display all of our users. On the update route, we will both list all of our users. We also can select any one that you choose and add some new information, change the information, and update it. And finally, on the delete route, as you as you might have figured, you can delete users here. So if you want to see how to do this, that's what we're going to do today. Stick around. Let's get right to it. For the sake of time, I am not going to cover every single little detail. I'm going to focus mainly on interacting with Postgres. However, the code for this whole project will be available in my repository. The link will be in the description of the video, and I'm going to briefly cover what it takes to get to this point. You must first create a skeleton application. You will need to create a home page and style it however you'd like. I'm also using a layout to render some basic styles and add my navigation bar to every page. The navigation bar is very straightforward. It just consists of the 5 links, one for the home and then one for every data operation: create, read, update, and delete. Then inside of our Vercel dashboard, you'll need to click on the storage tab and then go ahead and click on create database and then select Postgres serverless SQL. Hit continue and walk through the steps. It's going to ask you if you want to give it a name and what region you'd like. You don't need to configure much with this. Inside of that database, once you have it created, the important thing to note is that in the quick start option, there's all these little tabs, and what you're going to need is this snippet. Now, I'm showing this because it doesn't really matter. They have the identifying information covered up. You can just go ahead and copy that and go in your environment file and paste that in your environment file. I called mine secret Postgres string. You can call it whatever you like. That is the string that you'll need to actually connect to your Postgres database. The other thing that you'll need to do is install the package Vercel Postgres, and that is a special package for interacting with the Vercel Postgres database. That is all the setup. There's where we're picking up. Inside of our routes, let's go ahead and first create a new folder for our create route. Then we need to create a new file in there, and that's going to be our plus page.svelte. Again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through every little step with this. What you're going to need is you're going to need a form that has a first name field, a last name field, an email field, a password. I used a confirm password as well, and I have a little bit of logic in here for checking if the passwords match, and it will yell at you if they don't. This again will be available in my repository, and then there's just some basic styling. Once you have the form done, then your page should look like this, just having a standard form. If you're doing this for a production application, this is a good spot to put your business logo, as I'm doing here. The last thing that you'll need is you'll need your sign up button. When they click submit, we're going to ping an action that we're about to create that's called create. So inside of that same route, let's go ahead and create a new file. This is going to be a plus page.server. We don't want this running on the client side, just the server. So we first need to import create pool, and that is from Vercel /Postgres. Then we need our secret Postgres string. This is the connection string that I just showed you how to get that from out of the dashboard there. That's what's going to allow us to connect. This is going to be from env static private. We don't want that exposed anywhere. And then let's import a redirect from SvelteJS/kit. So what we need to do is we need to export const actions, and this is an actions object, and each one of these is an action. So we can do a default action. I want to make it clear what's going on here, so I'm going to name them all the data operation. So this is the create action, and it's going to be an async function, and we're going to need the request and then fat arrow function that. First thing we're going to do is make a form, const form equals await request.form data. So now we have all that available. So then we just need to pull out the pieces that are important to us. So let's grab first name, so form.get first name, and then const last name, form.get last name. We need the email and the password. Notice I'm not getting the confirm password because we've already checked that it matches in the client side. And let's fire up a create result variable that we're going to use to check whether the result is true or false. Then let's create a data object that's going to have all of those fields in it. First name, last name, email, and password will be an empty string. Then we're going to create a response object. Let register response. I don't like having that on another line. Let's move that up. That looks better. The error will start with false. Email will be email. Then we have first name that can go in directly. Last name can go in directly, and message will be an empty string to start. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a try. So we're going to do a data.password equals password. And I'm doing it this way because if you're going to pass this data back on failure and send it back to your form, which you can totally do, I've got videos on how to do that just like this. So if the form comes back, then go ahead and fill in the last name, but you don't want to do that with the passwords. We don't want to send that back. And so that is why I fill it in at the last second. So let's make a comment, create the user, and we're going to do a const result equal to await. Let's call this add user. We're going to pass in the data object there, and then you can do a console.log and just say API request ran result. Then we're going to set create result equal to true. Let's go ahead and catch any errors. Catch error. We can do a console.log API request errored register. Let's set our register response dot error equal to true, and our register response dot message equal to the error message. And then here what we're going to do is finally, if not create result, then we're going to return our register response. And I missed a parenthesis there. Whoops. Actually, I somehow got in the middle of it. And if create result is true, then what we want to do is throw a redirect, and we'll just throw it to 303, and we'll just throw it to home, so the base route. Now, one other thing for protection that you'll notice that I did here is what I'm returning back. So not only am I not putting the password into the last second, but I'm also not even returning that back directly. I'm creating a whole new register response object, and that's what I'm returning. So it's just kind of like another way of keeping things clear in my own mind as to what I'm doing. All right, so let's go ahead and give that a save. Now inside of our app, we're on the create route. Let's go ahead and fill this in and create a user. So one thing that I'll point out here is you can see there, that's the messaging that I was telling you I have. That logic, again, is available in my repository along with this project. But if the passwords don't match, then it yells at the person so long as they've typed into both fields. And the button, again, is disabled until they do, in fact, match, and everything is filled in. And then you can click sign up. Here is our error messaging that we have. And I always have the focus being set on the email because that's, in my opinion, what the most likely error is going to be. But what it's actually yelling at us about is that we never defined our add user function. So let's go ahead and add that function in. So at the top of our file here, let's go ahead and add an async function called add user that takes that user that we're passing in. And you can go ahead and console.log if you want, just to make sure everything looks the way you're thinking it should. Put the user in there. And what we first need to do is fire up a pool. So const pool equals create pool. And what you pass in here inside of an object is the connection string. And so that's why I called it the secret Postgres string, because it's the connection string. After we have our pool, then we need to await our command. So let's await, and we're going to do a pool.sql. This is going to look a little bit funky. This took me a minute to get my head around as well, but what we're going to do is the backticks, the string literal. No commas, no quotes, no colons, nothing, no parentheses in between the pool.sql and the string literal. You put pool.sql and then immediately a string literal. Now we can have spaces. Go ahead and open that up if you'd like. And what we're going to put in here is a very basic SQL command. Go ahead and put the caps lock on because pretty much all of this is going to be in caps lock. We're going to create table, and we're going to add in a little logic here, if not exists. And we'll call this users. So that way you can create the table if it doesn't already exist. If it does, then no problem. It's not going to cause any issues. And then we need the ID is going to be serial, and that's a primary key. And then a first name, and that's a varchar 255. We don't want that to be null, not null. And then a last name, email, also varchar not null, and password varchar not null. And then we're also going to add this created with a capital A, created at. This is going to be a timestamp with time zone default current underscore timestamp. We need to add in just outside there, add in a semicolon. You can also put a semicolon here at the end of your string literal to help show you this is where this command actually ends. Then we're going to insert the user. To do that, we're going to do a const result equals await pool.sql, and again with that weird backtick syntax, what we're going to have in here is an insert into users values, and then inside of parentheses we're going to have $, and then whatever the value is, so the ID. Then we're going to have the $ brackets, a user dot first name, And then you get the idea. We're going to have the last name. And we're pulling those all out of our user that we passed in here. After the last value, let's do something pretty sweet that we can do with Postgres, and that is on conflict. And what conflict are we looking for? Email do nothing. So if there is already that email address used, we don't want it to do anything. And then we want to go ahead and return result. So now we can add our user and then get the result back, and the rest of our logic will kick in. So give that a save. Let's go ahead and fill this all out again. Everything was successful, and so we kick ourselves back to the home page as we said we were going to do. We have those console.logs spitting out, and so you can see there's the user that was inserted, and there's our message saying that the API request ran. Let's move on to the read route. So inside of routes, create a new folder called read. Inside of that directory, create a new file plus page.svelte. Again, in an effort to save time, I'm not going to type all this out, but let's go through that real briefly. We have export let data, that is what's going to give us our load function information. We're going to create a server file next. And then we just have a little markup that is some basic styling to put everything in the middle of the page so it doesn't look so bad. We have an if statement checking to see if the load function ran and if there's users there. If there are users, then it's going to iterate through each one and spit out the ID, first name, and last name. Otherwise, it will give us an error. So inside of our read directory, with our markup done, let's go ahead and create another plus page.server. Inside of this file, this is going to be super straightforward. We actually are going to be able to make use of a lot of what we've already done. So go back to the other route, the create route, and inside of that plus page.server, copy out the create pool and the string and paste that in. That's done. And then we just need to export async function load. We don't need anything out of that, so we can leave that empty brackets. And then we can also copy out inside of the create in our add user function where we're getting out the rows. Before we do that, we can copy this. So now we have our pool, copy our pool line. So now we have a pool. And then let's make a comment so you know what's going on here. Attempt to get users from user table, return nothing if table does not exist or error. And then here we can go back to our create. So inside of our create, let's go ahead and copy this, the rows, the select asterisks from users, and we can paste that right here, and then just return an object, users, and the users will be the rows. Go ahead and give that a save. Make sure that you've saved your markup as well. And now in our application, we can go to the read route, and there are all of our users being read out and iterated through and displayed, including the one that we just created there. Pretty cool stuff. Let's keep going. It's so much easier once you get going because the first one takes the longest, and then after that everything falls into place. So let's create our update route. I like to go right in order, create, update, and delete. So for this, you can copy the read page. It's going to be pretty much the same, and then you can just add a checkbox in there. For the sake of time, I'm not going to type everything out. I took the read page and I just added a checkbox and then a little bit of logic so that there is a second form that we're only displaying if there's a selected user. So with our markup done, let's go ahead and create a plus page.server. Again, in this file, we're going to be able to make use of what we've already done. So in our read, we can copy all of this, actually. The whole plus page.server.js file for the read page, we can put that right in the update page because we're going to need all that because we still need to get all the users. We still need our pool. What's going to be different is that we're going to need an action, and we can copy the start of that one from the create. So let's go ahead and copy this out. What's going to be different is that this is not going to be create, this is going to be update. We're still going to need the first name, last name. We're not going to need the password because we're not giving that option. You can add that option if you'd like. Part of the information we get back with our users is the ID from the insertion. And so that's what we're going to use to look up in SQL what user we are modifying. So in your form, be sure you add in this ID, and that's going to come from the user that you're iterating through. So be sure you have a hidden field. You don't need to show this to the user. In your action, you can grab that out here, and then that's what we're going to use to look for that user in SQL. This will be update results. We still want data. This will get rid of the password, and that will be an ID. And then this will be update response. All of that will be the same: error, email, first name, last name, and message. And then here, we're still going to have a try catch. We're not going to need this because we're looking up by the ID. So update the user, and let's call this update user instead, and we'll write that function in just a second. Passing the data, update, say update API request ran. Oop, got to be inside the quote. And then this will be update result. We want to catch any errors. We can have a nice little message there. And then here we can get rid of this additional logic, and in our finally we can just return update response, because we're not going to leave that page, we can just stay there. Now let's write our update function. This is also going to be an async function, so async function update user, passing in that user. You can put a console.log here if you'd like, that way you can see what's going on. We're going to need our pool, so you can copy and paste that. Let's go ahead and update the user with the new information that they have given us. And we do that by saying result equal to await pool.sql, and again those backticks right away, update users, and we're going to set first name equal to user.firstname, last name equal to user.lastname, and email equal to user.email, where the ID, it matches what was sent in. And then we can simply return that result inside of brackets there. So go ahead and give that a save. All right, so there is our update. So if we select a user, then we get that form with the hidden ID, and we can update anything here. We call this Bobby, hit submit, and it will go ahead and update that user. So there is now Bobby instead. So there is updating. Let's go ahead and knock out this last route, and that's going to be the delete. So inside of routes, create another folder called delete. We're going to need another plus page, but you can copy the update because it's going to be very, very similar to that. Paste that in there. So the difference here for the delete is that in the update, we have that if statement that's checking if there's somebody selected, and then we have a form that's allowing us to change those values. What we're going to have instead for the delete is a form that just says, are you sure you want to delete, and then display that username. We're still going to need that ID, and then add in another button if they want to cancel. That will just clear out the selected user. So when you're done, that form should look like this, just an H3 or paragraph something that says, are you sure you want to delete? And then the yes button. If they click yes, that will submit to our form action, our delete form action. If they say no, then it just clears out the selected user. Pretty straightforward. Let's get right to the good stuff, which is interacting with Postgres. And we can copy the pluspage.server from the update because it's going to be very similar. So the difference here is that we are still going to need that load function that's returning all of our users so that we can display them. Let's go to our actions. This will be a delete action. And then here, the big difference is that we're not going to need anything except for the ID. We've asked the user if they're sure they want to delete it. So we don't need to check that. Data will just be the ID. Nothing else there. And this will be delete response. All we're going to have there is the error and message. We still will have our try catch any errors. And here we'll write a delete. Deleting is very straightforward. Call it, say, delete API request ran if you want to check that out. Delete results. Let's change that to delete. Add in delete API request ran so you know which is which. And this will be delete response. Copy and paste that, the delete response. And then for the actual function, we can get rid of the update function because we're not going to be updating the user on this route. We're just straight up deleting them. So let's call this delete user and put our last bracket back in there. If you want to have that console.log with the user, go ahead and put that. We'll still need our pool. So I could have kept that. So there's our pool. Let's put ourselves a little comment. Delete the user. And this is again going to have a result equal to await pool.SQL. And here it's just going to be delete from users where ID is equal to the user.id. Really straightforward on this one. And then we can return the result. So go ahead and give that a save and let's go try it out. So there is our little list of users, and again we replaced that secondary form that allowed us to change values with just an are you sure you want to delete and then the user, and if you say yes, it will delete that user out. If you select one and say no, it just clears the selected user. So there it is. There is Postgres on Vercel CRUD app. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up. My membership is live if you want to support this channel. Take care, and as always, have a great day.